You know, the air around us is always changing. It's based on natural and human factors like wildfires, traffic, wind patterns, and even pollen. And while most of us may check a weather app or check TV for a weather forecast, we want to see if it's going to rain or shine, but we often overlook something that's just as important: the air quality. That simple number on your screen can tell you a lot about how safe it is to go out and exercise, let your kids play outside, or even relax in the sun. This is a Healthier Michigan podcast, episode 184. And coming up, we're diving into how the air we breathe every day can affect our physical health and what small habits we can all have to keep us all safe and protected. Welcome to a Healthier Michigan podcast. It's a podcast dedicated to navigating how we can improve our health and well-being through small, healthy habits that we can start implementing right now. I'm your host, Chuck Gaidica, and every other week, you may know, we sit down with a certified expert. We explore topics around nutrition, fitness, and today it's all about the stuff we breathe every single second of the day. On this episode, we're talking about the Air Quality Index. This may be a number that you see, it may fly by you in your daily affairs, but what does it mean to our bodies? How poor air quality can maybe impact our lungs or our heart, our immune system, even our ability to stay active. So joining us today is Dr. Peter Graham, Clinical Director for Blue Care Network. How are you, Doctor?
I'm excellent, thank you.
Good. It's great to see you. So, we think that,
Likewise.
thank you. So maybe we think we're away from a city, we don't have the smog issues. We used to hear about that word a whole lot, but it doesn't matter whether you're living in the burbs, in the urban area. It seems like we're hearing about this a lot more. And I suspect for us in Southeast Michigan, the whole state of Michigan, we're hearing about this more because we're hearing more and more about wildfires from our state, from Minnesota, from Canada, from places around us, playing a bigger role than before. So let's talk about the details of this stuff as we dive in. What is the air quality index, first of all?
Yeah, thanks. AQI, Air Quality Index, you can think of it as a one-stop shop for understanding what air quality looks like where you live or in the region where you live. It's a metric that's used in common globally. It was agreed to, or the standards were agreed to it through the World Health Organization. Each country has essentially its own version of it, all they're very, very similar. So it's a way to compare kind of apples to apples what the air quality looks like at any given point in time and in a given geographic region. It translates into both a number, which we can unpack a little bit as we go through the discussion, and also it translates into a graphical, which kind of helps folks kind of understand or intuit what it really means. So both the number itself, it's a scale that goes from 0 up to 500.
What are we looking for that indicates, caution? If I assimilate it to a stoplight, am I looking for yellows and reds, and that means, pay attention?
That's exactly it. So it's both numbers and colors, and
Yeah.
both mostly to aid folks just kind of intuitively understanding what it means. It starts with 0 to 50 is green. That's like, imagine you're on top of Pikes Peak, crystal clear air as far as the eye can see. Nothing. It might be a little chilly, but it's very clear, clean air, easy to breathe. And then yellow to orange to red to dark red, purple. When you're getting up in the really high range, like the 200 to 300 range and beyond. 300 up is really hazardous. That would be like being in a really heavy industrial area, poorly filtered, poorly ventilated. Like sitting right next to a smelting factory or a coal refinery or something like that, where it's really, really dense.
Well, we see that. You just drive south instead of going up north, which we get to say in Michigan. But if you're coming from the south, you'll see more factories along the Detroit River, et cetera. So some people may have to live close to some of those factories and things that produce this often. But now we're hearing about particulate matter stuff that's inbound from other states, even other countries. So some of this, to me, it seems like it's very contextual, right? I've got to know myself a little bit to know if I should be concerned, because to be fair, in my own lifetime, I've never gone out, even when that scale has been increased, that number's gone up. I have never keeled over. I've never felt like I can't breathe. To be also fair, I'm not in the midst of a smoky event, like being near a campfire, but I see a great sunset from it. I may see a cool looking moon, but I'm not seeing a haze immediately outside of my driveway when I take the dog out for a walk. So Why should I be concerned?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Just kind of generally point out, within the last couple of weeks, actually, some of the worst affected areas in Michigan were up close to the Straits of Mackinac and the eastern UP. So,
Oh, yeah.
you're right. It is kind of turning things on its head. We get courtesy of Clean Air Act and a few things. We've gotten very used to clean air everywhere. And you're right. We just kind of take it for granted. But
Yeah.
anyway, who should, so, it brings you to the right question. Who should be paying close attention to it? The initial answer is really all of us. And we probably notice it. I'm guessing a lot of folks, even if they didn't, immediately feel kind of the dire effects like you described. Probably over the last couple of weeks, we've all noticed like our eyes burn a little bit more. It may feel like you spent too much time on the computer. That can be directly related to air quality and the AQI.
Oh.
If you've got allergies or anything like that, you've probably noticed a little bit more congestion, maybe a little bit more cough or dry throat. A lot of people have been saying that. It's like I wake up and I feel really scratchy. That said, who are we most worried about? And it's really a couple categories of folks. Obviously, I'll start with kind of the easier intuitive ones. Obviously, anybody with lung problems. So,
Mm-hmm.
if you use an inhaler, a prescribed inhaler on a regular basis, you should be paying attention to the AQI. And hopefully, that's a conversation you've had either with your primary physician or your pulmonologist or lung specialist if you see one, and cardiologist, which I'll get to in a second. For obvious reasons, anything that either irritates the airways more or effectively decreases the amount of oxygen that's easily available in the air when we breathe, that can make those problems a lot worse. I mentioned, asthma is obviously the big one, but
Mm-hmm.
also COPD. We, knew that one colloquially as emphysema. Or if you use oxygen, if you need supplemental oxygen, like in a tank or a concentrator that you carry with you, you really need to be paying very close attention to this because that can put you at risk. We worry about small children.
Yeah.
We tend to forget. Kids, God love them, they go out and rocket around and they don't really pay attention to kind of how they feel. And they run out of reserve really, really quickly. And small children, kids are not small adults. They have less pulmonary reserve relative to adults. The good news, they've got, young, healthy lungs, but the bad news, they're still developing, particularly toddlers and preschoolers.
Yeah.
And exposure to this kind of stuff is really potentially detrimental to them, particularly when you get up in the AQIs and the, kind of in the unhealthy range, like 150 to 200 plus. We worry about the elderly. We don't usually think about that as well. Even relatively healthy elderly, if you're getting to be kind of, I think you and I are probably in the same age range. I'm sorry to kind of out us as elderly, but getting close, kind of in the 60 plus.
Yeah.
All of us lose lung capacity over our lifetime. It's just a normal consequence of aging. And even if you're a very fit person and stay very healthy, it helps. But your ability to handle, again, decreased oxygen access gets a little less easy every year. So, if you're either yourself, somebody who's kind of getting in that category, just be mindful of it. But more importantly, if you're a caregiver or looking out for somebody who's particularly in the kind of old elderly, like 80 plus range, really
Yeah.
need to keep a close eye on those folks, make sure they're doing okay. And last but not least, folks with heart disease, we tend to overlook this. Um, air, Poor air quality is really hard on people with heart and vascular disease for a variety of reasons. So if you've ever had a heart attack, if you've had heart surgery, either bypass type surgery or stents or valve replacement, you really need to be paying close attention to this too, because it can make you both symptomatically worse, but it can also put you at increased risk for repeated thrombotic events or clot.
It's interesting. So I'll raise my hand and tell you, yes, I'm technically, I guess, a senior, although I never ask for my discounted coffee, at a drive-through. I don't. It's like, no, and I get that card thing in the mail all the time. Join
Yeah.
our club, and I rip it up and say.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really interesting thing to think about. How many of us fit into one of these categories you're speaking of? And I'll just speak for me as a baby boomer, because I am. I know the statistics. We tend to think in our minds, statistically, research shows we think we're about 15 years on average younger than we really are. So, you've got 90-degree temperatures, maybe you've got smoke in the air, you're out doing even lifting bags of bark mulch or some stones. You're trying to do some garden stuff. Doesn't seem like heavy lifting, maybe, but you start to combine that stuff in your age. And it is good to know thyself and to somehow temper what we're up to, right? Because sometimes that's tough for some of us.
Absolutely.
Well, let's talk about the idea of things that we can do. My car has an air filter, air quality air filter, I know, beyond the glove compartment because I've changed it. I changed the filters in my house. I'm blessed to have air conditioning. But what are the things that we can do short of saying, well, I'm just not going to go outside? Is it really just hunker down a little bit if you're in one of those higher risk categories?
Yeah, that's a good question. And you hit nail on the head with the first thing to assess. The AQI, if you look at the color scale and the kind of risk categories, it actually spells out some pretty clear directions or general
Oh,
directions for folks based on your risk stratification. So for generally healthy people, no known lung problems, adults kind of out doing things, generally up to you get to kind of the orange category.
mm,
um, you can generally still do what you want to do outside. It's kind of strange as a physician. Most of my, a good portion of my time doing health counseling with folks is trying to urge them to get outside
yeah,
and be active. And this is where it kind of flips on its head. But for most people who are generally pretty healthy, up until that point, it's okay. If you're in one of those risk groups, generally when it gets in kind of the orange range, you should be thinking about alternate places to be. So to get to your question, which is what do we do? What really makes
yeah,
sense? Being indoors does help, particularly if you have, and this is again one of those places where it's a little counterintuitive, but we're going to tell folks this is a good time to run the air conditioner if you have one.
hmm,
Either central air if you've got it, or even a window unit will help. Particularly if you're able to put like a standalone air filter, there are all sorts of them available commercially.
sure,
That does help. Every little bit that gets particularly out of the air that you're breathing, does make a difference. It's expensive, but it helps. Just a free tip on that, by the way, for most folks, when you're running central air, and this is, I run into this with patients, particularly with allergies often. One of the things you want to take a look at, we don't think about this during the summer months, but look at your air filter, whether it's a disposable or a
yeah,
reusable, and clean it. When we're burning the furnace, we tend to know, there's certain smoke and stuff in there, and we get it, but we don't think about it this time of year. It'll also save you a little bit of money, by the way, because if you're trying to blow a column of cold air through a really dirty filter, it's very expensive.
right,
So that helps. If you use medication on a regular basis, make darn sure you're still using them. And for folks with things like emphysema, asthma, or even people with heart disease, it's a good idea beforehand. So the next time you see your either cardiologist, pulmonologist, or primary doc, talk through, hey, what do I do if, I start to have breakthrough symptoms? When do I need to either, increase or add certain medications? Like folks with asthma are pretty familiar with this. When do I need to call for help? Because you want to know that before you walk into that. So as prepared as you possibly can be.
yeah,
Most autos, you're right, especially things that are built, much after, mid 2000s, have really good cabin filtration. As long as you
hmm,
change again the filter pretty regularly, it's inside your car is actually one of the cleaner places we ever go these days. Um, we don't the catch 22 there is we don't love people running cars all the time because it tends to generate a lot of other types of pollutants that really don't want
yeah.
to increase too much. But it's good, a good potential refuge if you don't have access to central air. That's a good thing to think about. So those are the things you can do, and watching your activity, and like you said, you just hit kind of nail on the head. If it's really smoggy, sooty kind of day, up in the 90s, that is not a great day to decide to go out and move 3 cubic yards of mulch. I mean, it's just not going to be good.
Oh, you've seen my yard from a satellite picture, have you? Yeah, I got.
Very similar to mine.
Anything else for takeaways here before we wrap things up that we either haven't touched on or some point you want to make about this again?
Yeah, I just reiterate a couple things, and you hit on it nicely in the beginning part of the segment. We've gotten, luckily, and this is a really nice thing, over the last 40, 50 years, courtesy of the Clean Air Act, plural, and a few things, we've gotten very used to clean air, and we kind of take it for
Yeah.
granted. And it's kind of a mindset shift of thinking about it, paying attention to it. So thing one is, look at it from time to time, particularly if just eyeball it. If you are somebody who has lung problems, please, good grief, download just a decent weather app. They've all got AQI on them. It's
Yeah.
really easy, intuitive to use. Airnow.gov, all one word.gov has great information on all of this. And last but not least, talk to your doctor beforehand if you have one of these health issues, either lung issues or heart issues in particular. Make sure you know what the plan is beforehand.
Well, Doc, it's great to see you, and thanks for all the wisdom. It's really good to know a lot of this stuff that we may just take for granted in our daily lives.
Well, thanks, Chuck. Been
Yeah.
a pleasure.
Well, be well. Dr. Peter Graham, who's Clinical Director for Blue Care Network, we're glad he's been with us, and we're glad that you tuned in today. Thanks for listening to a Healthier Michigan podcast brought to you by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. If you like the show, you want to know more, you can always check us out online. After you get your new app, your new weather app, you can go to ahealthiermichigan.org/podcast. That's where you can leave us reviews or ratings on Apple Podcast or Spotify. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And you can get new episodes, old episodes to take with you on your healthful walk outside if it's good for you on that day. You can use us on your smartphone, your tablet, however you subscribe. Make sure you hit the subscribe button for us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. I'm Chuck Gaidica. See you soon.